So,
Good.
thank you so much for coming on. I know that's your day off and you need no introductions. I would like to welcome Bob Proctor to the screen and Douglas Vermeeren. And tonight is all about How Thoughts Become Things movie. So, Bob, I know that you were literally involved in The Secret, and I love your secret story because it just happened, didn't it? So, you know, how did How Thoughts Become Things happen as well? It's just, they're both great stories.
Well, I think stuff like this happen around me all the time. I think people are in mass today are waking up, and they're starting to understand what thought is. And it's a new concept to the public in general, and yet it's an old concept in the mind of the people that are awake, that are alive and aware. So anytime something like this comes along, at least for the last 20 years, I've been getting a call, asking what I thought of this, what I thought of that. Of course, I've been working at this now for just about 60 years. So it's common everyday concept with me. And I think it's a good thing that people are starting to wake up and understand thought is energy. Thought is the preamble to everything, literally. I think U.S. Anderson said that best in Three Magic Words. He said, when we fully realize that thought causes all, we'll know there's never any limits that we ourselves do not impose. And I believe he's right. So thought becomes things. I mean, that goes back a long ways. Certainly, James Allen talked about it in As Man Thinketh way back in 1903, something like that,
It is. It's powerful. In the movie, I've watched the movie a couple of times already, and it's absolutely powerful. I love one of the things that you
Sheena,
actually...
just a quick note even on that. The way that I kind of got to Bob, actually, Bob, I don't know if you remember, it was actually Mary Morrissey that introduced us.
Sure.
And you got involved in our first film, The Gratitude Experiment. And then, we've kind of kept in touch just for the audience who's watching this to know. And Bob's been kind. He's, done the forward on a few of my books and that. And then when we talked about this idea of how thoughts become things, obviously he is one of the foremost people that I thought of. And so when we kind of chatted about this idea, Bob invited me out to Los Angeles where he was doing Paradigm Shift, which is such an awesome program for those that are listening if you've not done it. And we spent some time together and really hit it off. And so we knew that if we're going to make a movie about thought, we needed to include Bob in this. And so I'm grateful that he was there with us. It was great.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things, it's just like you said in the movie, Bob, it was just like, you should be happy, but never satisfied. That is one of the things.
Well, you see, I analyzed this a lot after I really started to study this and get into it. And I realized I was an unhappy child. I grew up unhappy. I think a lot of people are unhappy. And I don't think I was ever happy when I was growing up. Now, people say, well, you must have been happy sometimes. No, I don't think I was. I think I had fun, but I don't think I was happy. And there's a distinction there. Fun is something that's very short-lived and it's very shallow. Happiness runs very deep and it's long-lasting. There's quite a big difference. And I think people can be happy with their results, but totally dissatisfied. We are God's highest form of creation. And so if we stop and ask ourselves, what's God's purpose? Well, God's purpose is growth. It's creation, it's life, and expansion, fuller expression. And if we are God's creation, we're God's highest form of creation, and we're doing God's work, we've got to be working at it all the time. And we've got to understand that thought is energy. Thought waves are cosmic waves that penetrate all time and space. So when you get into thought, you're into something pretty powerful. And it's the highest function we're capable of. And unfortunately, not too many people get involved in it. Most people do not think. They're going through life reacting to what's going on around them, but they're really not thinking. I believe if people said what they were thinking, like I think Earl Nightingale put it, he said they'd probably be speechless. If you listen to most people talk, it's fairly obvious they're not thinking. They'd never say what they're saying. And if you stand back and observe most people, watch how they're living, it's fairly obvious they're not thinking, or they'd never do what they're doing. So I think it's, you get into this and understand that thought is truly the preamble to everything. Everything we see was a thought before it was a thing.
The other thing you said in the movie was we create our own economy, and just mindful of what that Douglas was actually talking about before, about, you know, multiple streams of income and network marketing. And that's one of the things that people seem a bit shocked at, to say, when I say that, because I just repeat you all the time, Bob. It's just like, we create our own economy.
I was talking to Mikey yesterday, and we're putting something together. We're going to call it your personalized economy. A person should ask himself, what do I need to live the way I want to live? And it's a personalized economy. They've got the ability to create whatever they want. And if they sit down and think and write it out, we do create our own economy. And so we should personalize it. We should say, this is exactly what I want. You know, I don't care what Sheena or Doug wants. This is what Bob wants. And you should be thinking, I don't care what Bob or Doug wants. I want what Sheena wants. You see, life is very short, and it can be an absolutely incredible trip. But we've got to make it that. And I think that, you know, we were talking about happiness there a minute ago. I think we can be happy with our results, but never satisfied. We should always be going for better results, hit a higher mark. Like if we're running, we should run faster. If we're jumping, we should jump higher. If we're selling, we should sell more. So it's all in our own thought process that we determine all this.
Fabulous.
I believe that, you know, when you say thoughts become things, well, that is so true. Like everything originated as a thought. You know, you think of this, think of bottle of water. Water now costs more than gas for a car. Now, somewhere along the line, somebody thought, I think they're probably drinking or something, and they half in the bag with something, and they said, let's bottle water and sell it. And then they thought that's a good idea. Now look at it. People will hardly drink water if it's not in a bottle. It's almost absurd.
Well, but you know, one of the things that you said in the film that I think is kind of neat, if we're talking about thoughts and thoughts becoming things, is you were talking about how pretty much everything already exists as well. Things already exist. Like, I love what you talk about the Maharaji. Where's the money going to come from? Well, it's going to come from wherever it is now.
Wherever it is now.
Tell us a little bit about that. And I guess also, what about things that haven't been invented yet?
Well, nothing is created or destroyed.
Yeah.
All we're doing is causing one energy to turn into another form of energy. And that's where our creation comes in. In truth, there's nothing created or destroyed. We're dealing with something that is. Spirit is. Energy is. And that's it. It's neither created nor destroyed. So everything at one time, like we're dealing with frequencies, and we think on frequencies. The cell phone is an idea that someone got in their mind, and then they acted on it, and then they made the cell phone. The ability to have millions of cell phones was always here. But when I was a little boy, not everybody had a phone. We did not have a phone. I remember the first phone we got, I was probably, 15, 16 years old before we got a phone. Didn't have a phone. And then when we did get one, there's a party line. And that was because we weren't aware that there's an infinite number of frequencies.
Yeah.
And it's when we became aware of that we started to create cell phones. But everything was at one time nothing but a thought. That's all it was.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting. You remember when you and I were shooting for this, after we were finished, we had a chance to have a pretty good conversation about vibrational frequencies. And I thought you said something really kind of cool. We never got it into the movie, but it's definitely worth talking about, is that frequency is also in some degree different manifestations of gratitude and love. That the higher the frequency, the more gratitude and love we have, and the lower, the less we have. And I thought that was really profound. Yeah. Would you like to talk about that for a quick second? Because that didn't make it in the movie, but these people want to hear it.
What we're doing is we're raising our level of conscious awareness. We're moving on to a higher frequency all the time. And when you see people living in a very low type of a lifestyle, they're operating on a very low frequency. Most people are living on an AM frequency when they could be on an FM frequency. And, you know, I think they can relate to that. Well, we can continually raise our thinking. When we hold an idea of something we want to do that we've never done before, and we have absolutely no idea of how to do it, what we've done with our mind is we've moved on to a higher frequency. And the picture we've got is real. It is real because we saw it. And we can actually cause that to move into form. We're dealing with something very powerful when you're dealing with thinking and you're dealing with the mind. I had the good fortune of working with Captain Edgar Mitchell, who was he was the captain of one of the lunar landing modules on one of the Apollo flights. And he was doing thought transference exercises from the other side of the moon to Sherman and Ford here in the southern United States. They had it all figured out what time they would do this, and he started to transmit thoughts to them, and they were receiving them. We're doing that all the time. You're doing that, I'm doing that, Sheena's doing that, everybody's doing that all the time. When you're thinking of another person, you should ask yourself, did I originate this, or did they start thinking of me and activate cells in my brain? Because that's a form of telepathic communication. It's going on all the time. Yeah. You're dealing with thought there, you know.
Yeah. Bob, you were talking about all the different goals and you know, and raising yourself higher and higher and higher. And so you're never satisfied. There's always desire coming through. What has Bob got for everybody this year?
What am I doing?
Yes, what else can we see from Bob this year? Because the Science of Getting Rich was just amazing. It was just the best work yet, Bob.
We're creating more seminars. We're doing more online work. We're doing, we're already planning, and we will start. In fact, I'm going to make a video on it tomorrow. We're going to be doing the Matrix online. We're going to do the next paradigm shift online. That's all within the next couple of months. I'm in the studio here. This is my studio. We can broadcast the company studio. We can broadcast all over the world from here. It's literally a television station that we built. And I think we built it just in the right time. You know, we built it about 3 or 4 years ago. But people are not going to be rushing to hotel rooms, I don't think, in a hurry.
No.
Yeah.
But we can broadcast from here. We put on the Science of Getting Rich seminar from here.
Bob, that was just absolutely super. I mean, I absolutely joined it. It was the best work yet. The whole thing was just like, wow, it was brilliant, especially Mr. Paradigm. I liked him.
Oh, yeah.
Have you got him?
Yeah.
They did a good job, yeah.
So let me ask you this, Bob. Yeah, let me ask you this, because one of the things that we're finding is obviously with the COVID virus, a lot of people are now indoors. Their lifestyle has changed. The way that they're looking at things have changed. One of the things that I'm experiencing now as we're talking to people about the movie and the media, I'm sure you're getting this too, is a lot of people are experiencing forms of depression. Some of them they're struggling because their economy has changed. Sometimes they're even now stuck with family members that maybe they didn't want to see as much of, but they're seeing more of these people. What kind of thoughts would you have for people right now that are now having to make such a dramatic change in their thinking? Like how to, again, it's a massive paradigm shift immediately, right?
You see, I think what they've got to do is stop and understand what's going on. Yeah. They are not in control of themselves, and they're letting the fact that they've been quarantined start to control them. They're being controlled from outside, and what they're doing is reacting to this situation we're in rather than respond. I was doing an interview with somebody here, I think it was Michael Lack, the other day, and he was asking about that. He said, what would you say to a person that's, lost his job and has to stay at home? And I said he could look at this as a new beginning.
Yeah.
And that's really what he should do. Now you've got a choice. You can look at the positive or the negative side. The truth is, it's both and yet it's neither. Everything just is. We make it positive or negative. So you can look at what's wrong with this situation we're in, or you can look at what's right with it. I choose to look at what's right with it. I think wherever you find all kinds of big problems, you'll find all kinds of big opportunities. It's the opposite side of the same thing. So I believe that a person should sit down and look at this and say, this is a great opportunity. We can do something totally different. And that's the way I look at it. And we're thinking of that. Like I'm putting together now short power seminars for quick results. I registered for quickresults.com, and I'm going to make shorter ones, and we'll blast them all over the place for the people that haven't got a lot of time, haven't got a lot of money. We want to help wake people up.
I'll put that up there. I'll put that link up there, Bob. You know,
Sure.
the website, if it's already in running, I'll make sure it's attached to this as well. And that's one of the things is about what you're always talking about is the repetition. And so can people just watch a movie once or listen to what you do the once, or, you know?
Well, they can, and it'll probably entertain them, but it's not going to change them. We've got to understand we're being controlled by conditioned mind. Our mind has been conditioned from genetics and then from the environment in our little life when we're babies. And that was a repetition of the ideas being put in there, and they're fixed in our subconscious mind. That's what a paradigm is. It's a multitude of ideas that are fixed in your subconscious mind, or habits. So if a person wants to change that, they have to get involved in repetition. It took me about 9.5 months to figure out why I changed. Because I changed dramatically. I went from one to way over the other side. And it took me a long time because what I did was so simple. Anyone could have done it, but I did it. And that was, I listened to recordings every day. I was so fascinated by listening to these, I couldn't stop listening to them. I had never heard anybody talking like this before. And it was the repetition of listening, because I was so fascinated with it, I literally changed my own programming. So I wrote myself a new paradigm, didn't know what I was doing, but I still benefited from it. And when I figured out what I was doing, all I wanted to do was teach it, and that's all I do. If a person's not involved repetitiously with a new idea, it's not going to do them any good.
Well, that's
Well,
what
this is kind of this is also, I think, an important point. Like when we were talking before, Bob, we talked a lot about this idea of giving them an experience rather than a movie. And I think that those who've had a chance to view the movie now, I hope they've used the workbook that we've accompanied the movie with, so that they do have to go through it multiple times. And I also will encourage people, just like you and I were saying before, they need to have conversations about this, almost like a book club. You guys need to build a mastermind around it. You need to make each other accountable, and you need to explore how you're really going to bring these principles, not just in your mind, but through every fiber of who you are, so that you have that massive shift.
I agree.
It's shifts that create where we're really going. It's not just a simple passing fleeting
I
thought.
recommend to people that if they're going to a seminar, go with someone, go with a good friend. If you're getting into a good book, get them to read it too, so you can discuss it. Because it's the interchange of ideas that really helps us wake up. And so, you know, it takes repetition, but it also takes community. It takes more than one person. You can do it alone, but it's a lot easier if you're working with somebody else on it.
Well, that's what Bob
you know, it's interesting.
sorry.
Just one thing, Sheena. It's interesting that you also mentioned the book, because one of the things that was really kind of neat with our time together and with some of the other, teachers in the film is we didn't have the opportunity to include everything that we talked about in the film. It just lengthwise, it was not possible.
Sure.
And so we do now have a book that's coming out. We're right now in negotiations with the final negotiations with the publisher. So you will have the film, the workbook, the audios, and you'll have a main book that will be available through all the major bookstores that will include content that was not in the main film, which again, I think is a really good opportunity for people to take not only a friend, but use those resources as friends as well, to build them as, let's call it, instead of walking a tightrope, let's build a web or a hammock that we can sit comfortably in and bring this material into our life, and then certainly share it with our friends. And the more the more we can associate with people who can influence us and can support us and impact us, the easier it will be for us to sort of maintain that new paradigm, if you will, that new line that we're trying to walk.
Sure.
So I think that's just an important thing, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, that's good. You put the practice together like that, because it'll certainly help them learn.
And that's pretty.
Yeah,
and
it needs to be that way.
The work that I do with you, Bob, I mean, that's something that is absolutely, you said that whenever you do the Thinking into Results program, that you'd need to take a telescope and look back at yourself, and you actually see yourself. And that's one thing, certainly for me, that I have completely changed from the inside out. Sandy Gallagher always says that when she listened to your material, it was like somebody went inside, took it out, shook it all around and put it back in. And that is exactly what myself and my clients are actually going through. So it is an absolute complete life changer. I just absolutely give praise every day for the Thinking into Results program.
That's great. Well, you want to make certain that they use the same one over and over and over again. I always recommend that a person dealing with Thinking into Results, they watch the whole thing, satisfy their curiosity, and then get on the first recording, first video, and watch that twice a day for maybe 2 weeks. Do the exercises in the book, and then go to the second one. And when they go through them all, and start over again. Now that violates the way we've been programmed to study. We have been trained to think, we read the book, we put it aside, we get another book. No, we read the book, we keep reading the book. I've got a piece of literature here. This is 2 pages.
What are you reading now, Bob? What is that?
This is Touching Lightly by Troward. I've been studying that for over a year. 2 pages.
Touching Lightly is amazing.
Just the repetition, yeah.
Well, that's absolutely, I mean, that's my final words. I'm very privileged for you to come on and you know, share some information about how thoughts become things. And I'm just excited for people to start this journey, you know, and this is probably one of the best ways to actually start the journey. So thank you very much for Douglas to come on, and thank you very much.
I want to thank you again, Bob, for not only your friendship, but also your participation in, again, our second movie together. I always enjoy our time together, and certainly, man, I just love being a student when you are speaking. It is so fun to hear the experience that you've got and the wisdom that you've got. And so I wish you the best, and I look forward to seeing you in person again soon, and to the next project that we're going to create. So thank you so much.
Anywhere I can. Thank you, Sheena.
Thank you very much, Bob. Have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.